You're listening to the Shit You Can't Make Up podcast, a conversation with friends, hosted by Marisol Sanchez.
Hey, hope you're all doing well. Thank you for checking in. And I was going to, well, okay. So I'm trying to figure out this whole podcasting thing and what I'm doing it for, how I want it to be done. And so you're, kind of rolling with the punches with me. And honestly, sometimes I just don't want to do it. Like, sorry, or if I'm not in a particularly if I'm not grounded or if I'm not in a great headspace, I most definitely don't feel like climbing on. Although sometimes I have, and it's been cathartic for me. I don't know what the hell, how you guys experience it, but ultimately, I guess the question I'm trying to answer is like, why? Like, why do I think do I have anything to say? Like, why am I doing this? And I do. I want to share with you what's kind of like going on in my life, and not just where I'm at today, but where I came from, like my journey, my story, because it is. I don't know if it's interesting. I feel like it's interesting. But I think it's an interesting story. I don't know. It's, I guess, for you to judge. But yeah, so that's what, so how would I title this podcast? I was going to just tell you about just a little insight into how I've grown. I think that's the right word. Grown, changed, evolved. I don't know. And approximately, I am bad with timelines, but I'm going to say about 10 years. Okay. How do I start this? I know I'm going all over the place. Bear with me. All right, I would probably call this the title of this podcast would be 80/20. I was just talking to a friend of mine, and I said something like, my goal is to be, and I don't know if the word is happy or more than I'm looking for is content or peaceful. Insert adjective here, joyful. 80% of the time, and 20% of the time understand that I'm not going to be, but be okay with that, and just, it is what it is. And I think 80/20 is a great number, and my friend's and I genuinely heard this in his voice, he's just like shocked. He's like, I'm happy 95% of the time, and he genuinely, I think, is. So it's just interesting. It's just it was an interesting perspective, a difference, which then, of course, got me to thinking, which is always where I come to the, talk to you guys when I start thinking. About that 80/20 rule. And some other stuff's going on. It's I have this trip that I'm leaving to go to India. Gosh, I think in 10 days. I think 9 or 10 days. And I want to talk a little bit about that. It ties into the 80/20. It'll tie into the whole story. Anyway, but that's what this one's about. Hopefully I can articulate it in a sort of linear fashion. Okay. If you've listened to previous podcasts, woe is me, sad little stories from childhood. But I think if you've also listened to this podcast, I think I can honestly say I've moved on or let go of some of those stories, angers, the historical origin stuff. Like I've worked through that. I think. I mean, it's ever evolving and changing, and it modifies, and you have to deal with new family dynamics, and just everything, aging parents, life cycle. But and also I guess talked a little bit about being divorced, which sucked. Would not recommend. Also, well, I take that back because I don't recommend or not recommend divorce, but it was awful. It sucked, but I also think I've grown. I mean, probably the biggest jump in my personal growth happened post my divorce. It's still happening. And again, I think that's where I'm going to talk a little bit about India. Okay, fuck it. So let me start cohesively in some manner. So 80-20 is my goal. I'm bad with timelines, but I would say I'm looking back about 10 years, maybe. Long pause. Hold on. Having a sip of my tea, my holistic apple cider vinegar with mother lemon, local honey. I mean, I've changed a lot. I was not drinking this 10 years ago. Okay. 10 years ago, or I think it's 10 years ago. It was the first year that I was on it was a girls' weekend trip that a friend of mine actually invited me to. I'm not sure. Oh, okay. She was probably the genesis of all this. I'm going to have to say thank you to her. So anyway, she invited me on this girls trip that was just so much fun. I just can't even describe it to you. It was a great. It was on this island. It was beautiful, and it was okay. I'm going to tell you the story of my first trip to this girls' weekend. I'm bad with numbers and stuff. Maybe 12 women are there. I know one somewhat well. I'm just starting to become friends with her, and we really get along. We're both liberal in a small southern town. Similar sense of humor. It was just she and I connected. So she invited me to this girls' weekend. I go. There's about 10 other women. And I was really intimidated. I was like completely intimidated because I had no sense of I don't know. It was a weird time. Kids, small kids. Your friendships are kind of not forced, but developed through your kids' social. Like you're not going to the office, and you're not going to school. You don't have. I don't know how to describe it, but I don't know. I'm speaking for myself. It was a hard time for me socially after my kids were born because it's sort of like I don't know. It's just there's a new version of you born. You're not a mother before you have children, so it's like it was I don't know weird. And I was also probably still on some level. I had really bad postpartum depression after my twins were born. Like bad. Like I didn't talk bad. And I think I might be wrong about this, but no, I don't know when. I started taking antidepressants. I don't even know when. I cannot tell you a time in my life that I've not been depressed. Shit. May I also add that it's fucking raining outside on this like dreary, awful day? This sounds all sad and whatever, but I'm not. I'm actually in a really good place. I'm in my 80-20. I'm gonna get back to it. But in the past, I don't know when I have not been depressed. I don't know if it's chemical. I don't know if it's history of origin stuff. I don't know if it's you know, I would argue that my mom was depressed. At least, yeah, I don't know if it was ever diagnosed or anything, but it's just a guess. You know, she was my one and only like everything parental figure. So, that sounds like I'm blaming her. It might be chemical. I don't fucking know. I don't know the why, but it's been there. It's a real thing. It's not that it's been every day or all the time. But it's something you for me at least. I go in. I can go in and out of. Anyway, I don't know. So I don't know when I got on antidepressants, but I've been on various different ones for various different combinations up until about the year, I don't know, about 6 months before I separated from my ex-husband. I kind of literally tripped into a semi-healthy lifestyle, and that's helped a lot. Going to therapy. I would say pretty intense therapy for 3 years. That was really truly a blessing. Like I strongly recommend it sometimes because I'm not saying you have to go all the time. I'm not saying you have to go and sit and discuss your mommy daddy issues. I don't. But sometimes just talking something out that's a pattern in your life or something that you keep repeating that you don't want to repeat, to sit on a couch and talk it out with someone, and finding that someone can be, it might take you some time to find the right therapist, but I think finding the right therapist can be very, very, very helpful. But I also literally like ran into yoga. It wasn't something that I it's weird. Some people, when they've come to know me like in the last few years, they totally think that I'm a hippie. I've had friends from my past who are like, "Oh, you're such a hippie chick." I never saw myself that way. I never ever saw myself like I have a yoga tattoo. I mean, not a yoga tattoo. A tattoo, like one tattoo to remind me to be grateful, and I do essential oils. I drink apple cider vinegar. I look for holistic cures, I guess. But then again, I'm also madly in love with Western medicine if I'm really sick. So I don't know. But I mean, I crossed the line at patchouli oil. I don't like it. I don't smell like patchouli oil. But anyway, this is an evolution, who I am today, which sometimes I feel is like a caricature of a person. And, but I don't know if it's authentically who I am. If it feels like I'm much closer to who I am supposed to be than I was when I went into this, first girls trip weekend. Sorry, took a little side detour there, but okay, back to the story. So we were at this girls' weekend, and I was sitting next to this one lady, and I said something under my breath. I don't know what it was, but it was funny. It was witty, and she like busted out laughing, and then she like looked at me because I was kind of like meek. I mean, I just was such a different person. I mean, I was probably, God, I don't even know, 40 pounds overweight. I, I can't even tell you what level of uh, pharmaceutical drugs I was doing at the time. Wasn't drinking. I wasn't drinking. I don't know. It wasn't healthy. I think my unhealthy behaviors were in what I was eating or how I ate, my relationship to food, and I don't know, just whatever. Not really living, just kind of existing. Um. Anyway, go to this girl's uh, weekend. Said something funny. She laughed, and then she looked over at me, and I said something like, "I'm really funny. I'm just quiet." Um, and I remember saying that, and I remember her because she repeated that story for many years down the line as I kind of came out of my shell and was more open with, I have a really dirty sense of humor, which I don't think comes across in this podcast. I don't know if it does, but I do. I mean, I'm just whatever. I am who I am. I guess is the fucking point of this. Um, But back then I didn't talk. And I feel like if I look back at my whole life, I always feel like I've only talked in my head. Like all my funny jokes, like God, I look at my daughter and she says stuff that's so funny. And I wouldn't have said those things at her age. I would have said it in my head. And just the fact that she can say it out loud is just like, oh, it just makes me laugh. It's just, I don't know, it makes me happy. But yeah, a lot of the dialogue is in my head in my childhood, which I have come to learn through my yoga and through therapy. To be in your head is not, the best place to be because those stories are just stories. Anyway, so that's where I was 10 years ago on this first girls trip. I was someone who just barely talked, had no sense, not of self-worth, though I know that is also a new thing I've, in the last few years, have started to have. So, but no sense of who I was, no sense of what kind of clothes I liked, or I just kind of, my daughter makes fun of me when she looks back at these baby pictures. She's like, did you even just care? um, I don't know what to say. Um, but yeah, I've gone from not talking, being quiet, keeping my thoughts and my personal views to myself, to having a podcast. That's, fast forward 10 plus years. Going to India in a few weeks. And, when I started talking about going to India, when this came up, this opportunity came up earlier this year, it was, yeah, great. I was kind of excited about it, a little bit nervous, because it's I don't know, it's logistically, it's, being a single mom to 3 kids is, is a bit of a nightmare. Physically, I wanted to be in the best shape possible for the practice because I'm practicing with the leading Ashtanga. I don't know if to refer to him as a teacher, or guru, but I'm studying with him. Staying in an ashram. Like, seriously, this is, is this legitimately who I am? Or am I going to come back smelling of patchouli oil? Like, I can't, I don't know. But I do know that I've evolved, I've changed, I've grown, I've opened up, and, can really be very honest with myself and with the ones I love and connect with. So and I'm not on antidepressants, and which I'm not judging. They, got me to function. I look back at those first few years with the twins. I just remember just not wanting to get out of bed. Like getting out of bed felt like a Herculean effort. So, now my life is 80-20. It's 80% of the time I'm good. I'm not saying that I can't, I can't use the word happy. I can't say that I'm happy, 80% of the time, but I'm good 80% of the time. I could appreciate, the moment. I could appreciate my kids. I could appreciate, this podcast, my work. I could live, I guess, gratefully 80% of the time. 20% of the time, I can't. But that is really fantastic numbers for me. Like, I'll take it. And if your numbers are lower than that, if your numbers are higher than that, I just don't judge. Just, we are all different. But yeah, so 80-20. I feel is pretty good. And I think I've kind of answered my question about why I'm doing this. It's because, or what stories do I have to tell? It is that evolution, because I'm not that person of 10 years ago. The meek, unhappy, unhealthy, physically, emotionally, spiritually wasn't even a realistic concept for me. Like I just, so that I'm, able to discuss my personal beliefs or have what's it called? The spirituality. Like the Pope just mentioned it, and the way he described it was so beautiful. But it's a connection. I just feel like it's a connection. I feel like there's something greater than me. But I also feel like I felt it in me. I felt, I don't know, that beautiful spirit. So I guess that's spirituality. And I don't know. I don't know. Again, I'm a reformed atheist. I don't know how to explain it, but and I don't know how that ties into India. But I guess I'll let you know when I get back. So, anyway, this is as good as it's going to get. It's not going to be a take two on this. I have a million and one logistical things I'm getting ready to go through. And I got work. I got some works to do, and I got life. Which is busy. It's busy for everyone though, right? So take time for yourself. Do something creative. I'm trying to figure out how to end these things, but all's good, and I will talk to you later.